All right, why don't we get started then? Go ahead, Sam.
All right. So good evening, everybody. It's great to see you all. So you might have heard us talking for a couple minutes there about graduation. And I just want you to think about the fact that next year at this time, we'll be talking about your graduation. Just something to think about.
If we get through data.
You guys will be hooded. Unless something big happens, we'll be able to hood next year. There's two reasons for my dropping by. The first is to identify and explain a little bit about portfolio, which we're going to start working on now. And also, I want to talk a little bit more about Enneagram and give you an assignment that's coming up. So I'm going to start with portfolio. Portfolio has evolved in our program because we have established that we want to prove each of our students graduates knowing and understanding the tenets of our program. There's 6 program outcomes. And the way we do that is to have you either record a video or do a paper that explains what you understand about each of the program outcomes. We also ask you to save evidence from your work in this program. So starting in this course, you're going to notice a new piece in your syllabus. And Eric might already have talked to you about this, but you are going to save one of your papers from this course. And that paper is, Eric, is it the Badir?
Yeah, it's this week 3 assignment that turned in on Monday or Tuesday evening.
Okay, so the Badir assignment, you're going to put into a special portfolio on folder on your computer that you identify as portfolio. Beginning with this class, you will always be asked to put aside a copy of an assignment or 2 assignments. And when you put them aside, that means they go into this folder, and then it's going to accumulate the evidence you'll need for portfolio. Since you've gone to Canvas, which many of us are thrilled about, how do you guys feel about Canvas? Are you liking it?
I think it takes a little getting used to.
It's definitely different. It's funny how the difference between weekly and module, week 1 or module 1 gets people going, no, wait a minute, what is that again? So there's small things. Eventually, there's definitely a learning curve, but I think you're going to find it's much more responsive to you than Blackboard ever was. So I would love to hear, after you get finished with this class and you do the next class, love to hear what you think about that piece of this. So because we're going to Canvas in total, be no documents held on to from Blackboard. Blackboard will literally disappear in September. I'm telling you this because contained within your first class, OL 500, there were 2 papers. One is the very first thing you wrote, which when you look at it, you're going to go, well, who wrote this? This certainly isn't me, because you've already made big changes. But you need to save that paper. That's how we establish where you began, to see how far you've grown. You also have to save your LDAP. Do you remember that? Your Leadership Development Action Plan. That also needs to go in that folder marked portfolio. Here's the tough piece. You have to do that. You've got to make sure you have those 2 papers from our first class, like by the middle of July. I'm telling you the middle of July. In truth, it won't disappear until September 1, but it is going to disappear. If you go by, if you don't have either OL 500's What is Leadership or the Leadership Development Action Plan, but you should be saving all your work. But if you don't, you need to get those two pieces. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense? You have a very short window. You can't yourself go into Blackboard and pull them out. You have to go to Lisa Manley, and I can give you her information if you need it. But honestly, in graduate school, you should be saving all your work anyway. We're just asking you to save it in this portfolio folder. People get all sorts of nervous about the portfolio. I think because it's not like a typical assignment, you're proving something, and that can be a little daunting. So we start earlier, and I'm going to be talking with you a lot about this, coming into different classes, but I'm also going to be asking you to submit things to me so I can look at where you are and how you're doing. For the time being, I have sent you a document which you should have received this afternoon. It's actually for cohorts 9 and 10, your cohort 11. I wanted you to just at least get a look at how the system is set up right now. It tells you what you would do. It's also going to show you the rubrics that will guide the review. The process is like this. Next spring, so spring of 2022, you are going to submit all of your essays with their evidence to me. When you submit it, I'm going to then take it and I'm going to distribute it to a group of reviewers. I remove your name and you're assigned 2-letter 1-number code. It creates anonymity for you. And so nobody's going to know if you do well or you don't do well on because they don't know who and for N16, N1B is. They're not going to know. I will know. You will know. Because I've known you since you walked into the program, and because over the course of time, I see you so often and we talk about a lot of different things, I am not at all unbiased. I care deeply for you. I committed to you guys walking across the stage. If you stay in this program, I'm committed to you going across that stage. So for me to read your work was not going to be an assessment, a proper assessment. So I have reviewers who are not associated with this program. They might be on our advisory board, or they may be, there are some employees of Goodwin who work in like the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, or it might be a former instructor, or it could just be some former students. People who've graduated from the MSOL are a number of our reviewers. They are assigned to a specific program outcome. So that means I have usually at least 12 reviewers for 6 outcomes. Because they only review one program outcome, they're really good. They have worked on it. We have met, we've all agreed how to grade something. So there's a great deal of consistency. The expectation is that you will achieve proficiency or mastery in all of the program outcomes. If you don't, there's no reason to be alarmed, because here's what happens. I get in touch with you, I tell you something didn't pass, and then you and I sit together with the reviewer's comments, go over it all, and you take it back and work on it again and then submit it to me. I do all the second reviews. That enables me, because people get, they can feel a little disappointed that they didn't pass. So working with me is a lot less problematic than working with someone else. Here's a couple of things about these essays. You cannot do them in one draft. If you do, you stand a good chance of not passing. You have to read them. they're going to look for APA. They're going to look for content. They're going to look to make sure that sentence structure is strong. They're going to look to make sure that the ideas are fully formed and executed well. We have a writing tutor. Her name is Adrienne. She actually reports to Eric, and she is going to be available to you. I just recently reviewed 21 papers that she commented on, and she gives strong feedback. This takes time. That's why we're starting now, but it's nothing to be alarmed about. It's just something that's part of this program. The thing about grad school, and if you know anybody who's gone through grad school, there are oral defenses that some people have to do. There are comprehensive exams that others do. This is just our way of securing that the people who walk across that stage with that MSOL are ready and capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the rest of you. That's why it's done. So I'm going to stop there because I'm going to be back, like I said, many times to talk about this. Do you have any questions?
Sandy, can I just have you clarify something?
Sure.
So the submission, the reviewers are not going to regrade the submission.
No, they don't regrade your we call it evidence or artifacts. They are only going to score that essay that you wrote that says, here's what I know about this program outcome. And here's my examples of what I did so you can see how well I understand it. I mean, I'm simplifying it in that short discussion, but essentially it's, maybe a page, 2 pages. That's the only thing they're grading. Thank you, E. That was very helpful because that can be confusing. And you do not change any of your artifacts. So if you're putting in something and it's not as well written as your later work, you're not going to redo it. You are simply showing where you were at that time. That's all. Does that make sense? Okay. There are plenty of resources. Eric is an incredible resource. First of all, OL 520 is the first paper you're going to save, in terms of for a particular program outcome. Program outcome 3 is about using data. And when you get the document I sent you, you can see the 6 program outcomes, and you'll see this is the first one we really work on. As far as it's concerned, there is, if you talk with Eric, he can tell you because he's done this. Remember, he graduated from this program, so he's done it. He's also served on our advisory board and has been a reviewer. He has seen it literally from every angle. So the instructors are really well aware of what the program outcomes are and what assignments connect you to that. Ask them, but I think Eric is one of the few that's been on every side of this equation. All right, that's not unusual. Please don't worry. But here's what I urge you to do. Look at what I sent you. If you're confused or if you have a question, start to ask them. Do not just let things slide. Ask. E, did you have a question?
Hannah does. Hannah has a question.
Okay.
I don't know if can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just curious, what is the percentage of people who start the MSOL program and finish the MSOL program, like to graduation rate?
We have a really high graduation rate.
Number?
Average grad programs are probably around 70, and I think we hover around 90%.
Oh, that makes me feel better, Sandy. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. No, and I will tell you, we also have students who start in one cohort, maybe they got sick or something happened, and so they may not finish with their cohort, but I haunt people. As you can imagine, if you weren't ready to finish, I will find you because you want to finish. So that's why I think I stalk. No, it's not stalking, huh, E? It's not really stalking. Not
Wow.
friendly.
You can choose the vernacular, but you won't have a peaceful weekend if something's missing.
Yeah. We really take it seriously that you commit to us and we commit to you. But in terms of overall portfolios, on the average, 70 to 80% of students pass on the first time through. That being said, I'm not saying they pass, they don't pass any. I'm saying that most people, so 70 or 80%, will pass all of them. The other remaining percentage, on the average, it's 1 or 2 essays they have to rewrite. That is the average. That's what's worked the majority of the time. And that's going back to when Eric took his, and he was in the first cohort.
Are we revising them or are we not revising them? I think I'm a little confused on that.
Oh, sorry, Elise. Okay, you're not going to revise any work you put into the portfolio. Is going to be the work that you've completed. It's already graded. You got a grade on all. The only thing that passes or doesn't pass is going to be that actual essay you're going to write. Outcome, wait a minute. First program outcome is best practice, leadership theories and best practices that, and I'm paraphrasing, that work with diverse stakeholder groups. So when you write it, you're going to say, here's what that means. Let me explain. This is what it means to me. And then this is evidence that I have worked on this. This shows the theories. You use a couple of theories. There's also the rubric as a guide. If you use the rubric the right way, you will know precisely what to write about. It breaks everything down, and I would urge you to take a look, but nobody is going to regrade what has already been graded. The one time that it actually is examined differently is in Program Outcome 6, which is express and exchange ideas. So it's about communication. And in that one, the first element of the rubric says something along the line that, you know, your writing, your communication has substantially improved. It's improved somewhat, it's the same, or it went down. You know, it's that kind of thing. So there's actually, they're looking to see if it's improved from the first paper. Remember I said you're going to give us what is leadership, and that was like the worst thing you've probably written, right? At least in this program. So you're going to write, you're going to see that. Then they're going to look at a paper from a later class like OL 660 or OL 620. And is there a substantial change and improvement in these two? They're not grading it, they're comparing it. And then you get a grade based on the improvement of your writing. Does that make sense, Elise?
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, you guys. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Johanna. And hello, Marianne. It's good to see you guys.
Hi there.
So we are talking about the portfolio. I sent you something today about it. Please look it over, and you can arrange an individual appointment with me. I just want to introduce the topic and have you look at the paperwork I sent you. We can go over it, and we will go over it in later classes, but it's just a little beginning. Okay,
Okay.
any questions?
I have a question, it's Kate.
Sure.
When are these essays getting written?
All right, is that Hannah?
No, it's Kate.
Kate,
Kate, all right, I can't really tell. The voices are a little hard. You know, you got masks on.
Yeah.
All right, so Kate, you should be writing them as we go along. What I will tell you is that it's a good idea to wait probably, and you know, like in 660, I come in and I say, okay, there is an expectation you're going to give me an essay that says who you are, what kind of leader you are, and what's your goals. You can't really write that now because you're not far enough in the program to really know, you know, who you are as a leader or have experienced some of the development that comes in the program. So we typically wait till then, and then you submit a resume to me. Around that time, I'm going to ask you to write an essay and show me the artifacts or evidence you're going to send with it. I'm going to grade it and give you a heads up as to where I think you would come out. I'm going to use the rubric for your purposes so you can see the actual process. With no skin in the game, there's none of that's going to count. It just gives you a feeling for the experience, and it gives you a heads up where you could go and get some help. But you should start writing them. Probably 660 is in the third term. And then people start writing, there's 6 of them. You might write 1 or 2. Sometimes people get a rhythm going and they start really writing them, and they write them pretty quickly. My response is just remember, you can't submit it after 1. I have never seen anybody submit one, written 1 time, and pass. You gotta give it its due, and use our writing tutor. If you need help with APA, Cindy Hunt in the library is amazing. Your instructors will help. Does that help, Kate?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Sandy, can I add one thing?
sure.
So, I hammer these guys on pronouns. This is an opinion piece a little, so you're allowed to put I in here. So it's not going to be, it is APA, but it's also, you're making a personal statement as well. So
Yes,
it's similar to the second module assignment.
that's really good to do, is to make sure that you remember this is your opinion. You're saying, here's what I know. So yes, it is, you can use I. Eliminate the word it from your playbook. Get rid of pronouns. And I mean it, even though you can use I and you make I statements, no my, no you, no we, no, and definitely no it. I have something against it. You will see. Right?
Oh, yeah. Ironic
Oh, yeah.
right now.
So a good thing is if you guys decide that you would like this, I would be more than willing to reach out to some of our graduates who have expressed a desire to help anybody with portfolio and set up a study session or a group opportunity to meet with somebody on Zoom or face-to-face and actually have them help you through. We're not trying to make this tougher. So whatever works. Okay. All right. So remember, the offer holds. You want to talk with me personally, or you want to set up a session, or you want me to come into any of your classes, I will. I'll be back in OL 540. When you start talent and performance management, I'll come back and we'll talk more. But I thought I'd take a few minutes of your time to talk a little bit more about Enneagram. As you all know, we did Enneagram starting in the first class, and I've come into each, well, so far I've come into OL 510 and I'm back in 520. So the thing is, it's very easy to assume that Enneagram is of little to no importance. Part of the reason is we're in grad school, we want something that's scientific. We want to know that it's not an abstraction, that it's useful. And we want to know that we can investigate and better understand differences. Here's a couple of things I learned this week. So we have, and Mary Ann, are you an 8? Did you claim that type?
You know, I'd have to go back and look. It's been a couple classes.
Yeah, no, I know. So if you have claimed an 8, you and Maria are the rarest type of the 9. Just thought you'd want to know. It's unusual. Approximately 16% of the world who tested with this is a 9. 9 is considered the most common. And our Elise is a 9. Second least popular, not popular, but unusual. Oh, and Johanna, you're a 9 as well. The second one after 8 is 5. And I don't think there's anyone in this group that's a 5. 5 is people that are sometimes they can be seen as know-it-alls. They're the ones that scholarship and understanding a specific area is incredibly important to them. And then the third is Hannah and Kate. I thought you were a 2 at first, but you're not. You're 6. But Hannah is a 2. Those are the 3 that are the least. There are the fewest people who have those types. So the whole point of tonight is for you to start to think about data through the eyes of the Enneagram. 7s, like Stephen, oftentimes, and Rebecca, don't find themselves attracted to data. Data is incredibly important because it takes us from a sense of something to meaning. Meaning is what we all seek. But for some of us, it's the words that provide meaning, not the sequence of things or not the number of things. Data often signals a problem or an opportunity. Data signals a problem or an opportunity. Do you agree? What do you think? Thank you, Marianne. She is an 8. So data signals a problem or an opportunity. Cynthia's shaking her head yes, and we want to go with her. And you know why we talk about problem or opportunity? It's because Cynthia's a 1. Cynthia loves her data. She loves her data because it makes things factual. Would you agree? Data gives, right? I know you're laughing, Cynthia, but am I right? Data makes a difference. To a 1, data is doing things right. There's a right answer for a 1, and data gives you the right answer. When we talk about 6s, 6s look at data as a form of protection. They are very loyal. A 6 is always loyal, but they're also very concerned with knowing what they have to know so they can be protected. I have a dear friend, Katie O'Leary, who, when her kids were small, always had full outfits for everybody in the trunk of the car because you had to be prepared. That's a 6. So 2s, we know, They use data as a mechanism to provide help because they are the helpers. How's data work for you, Hannah?
Well, I love it so much, Sandy. I just can't get enough of it. But it's the willingness to really to pitch in or to have people gather to pitch in. So I'm experiencing the fact that I need to love data more as a number two, as a helper.
Exactly. So twos will say data is a means to an end. I use data so I recognize and so I can help people. However, if I didn't have to use data, that would be okie dokie with me. Sevens like data as long as they're not stuck. Sevens don't like to be stuck. Stephen, does that seem about right?
Um, I I just I don't know if I like data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. I use data if I feel like there's like you said, there's a purpose, there's a need for it.
And you know what, Stephen? That was the perfect seven answer. Why? Because I use it if I've got to. It's not what I seek. But Cynthia's seeking data because a one has an answer. Sevens don't want to be stuck with one answer. They want the number of answers to kind of grow. They want opportunities. Ones like answers. Four, data can, I'm a four and I'm not fond of data initially, but I use it. It is yet again a means to an end. What does an eight think about data? What do you think, Maria? What does an data?
I mean, if it gets, probably if the data can help you get to the end game more quickly, so you can be more focused, then that probably is a benefit.
That makes perfect sense. So, and does that sound right to you? And do you see Mary Ann's answer? I love data. So she can definitely hang out with Cynthia because Cynthia will like data too. Part of what this is about is not that there's a single answer, but I want you to start to see that everything in leadership is different for us, in part because of the way we're wired. I am going to send you, an article I found about Enneagram that goes into more of the scientific. So you might really like this, Cynthia. And Mary Ann, because you like data, you might like it too. What I want you to think about is that data, in order to have meaning, we connect it to something relatable. We connect data as relatable to size or to time or to things. I don't know if you heard this report that all these billionaires are paying very little taxes. Very little taxes. In fact, far less. In some cases, zero taxes. Whereas most middle-class Americans pay a phenomenal amount in taxes, right? What you find is that everything is relatable. Would you mind if I eat my lunch? Oh my gosh, you're not being disrespectful. You go right ahead. But we use things that relate. So I want to tell you a story, and it's sort of an Enneagram story. There's a small town in Tennessee, and everybody in this town looks exactly the same. They're all white. They're all Baptist. It's a lovely little town. It's a small town where people have grown up generation after generation. So they like to take on a social program, a social problem every year. And so this particular year, they wanted to study the Holocaust. So they took the Holocaust on, and one of the teachers was talking, and relatability to data. This kid said, I cannot even conceive of 11 million people killed by the Nazis. I can't even begin. And he said, I don't know what 11 million looks like. He was in 6th grade. And the school recognized he had said perhaps one of the most important things that you could say. Nobody understands what 11 million looks like. So they decided they were going to try and come up with something that could create a sense of what 11 million, just in numbers alone or items alone. So they stumbled onto a paper clip. What you probably don't know about a paper clip is that paper clips were created by the Swedes, and they created it as a silent battle against Hitler. Okay.
That was related to your
$4,000
Yes.
tax credit.
you talking about
Yeah.
the movies. Yeah. Sorry.
Crazy. So they had created this and they would wear it on their lapel. And if you saw somebody with one of these on their lapel, you would know that they were not a supporter of the Nazis. So what they did is they decided they were going to accumulate 11 million paper clips. So at least they could have an idea of what the number looked like, because it just, the data was there that there was 11 million people, but there was no way to really quantify that in the minds of people. So they began it. What began with one small boy's issue became a town-wide thing. They actually went to Steven Spielberg. They went to people of Jewish descent because the Nazis had ruined their lives. They actually bought a cattle car that had been used to transport people to the gas chambers. And what they did is they began to understand what this was. Eventually, they brought in people from World War II who had survived the camps to tell their stories. They had their tattoos. They talked about their story. And slowly but surely, they accomplished something where they began to understand what 11 million looked like. They actually accumulated far more than 11 million. But what they did is everybody's contribution was welcome. There is a cattle car. There are 11 million little paper clips. What they did is they designed an unusual but a beautiful memorial in a little town in Tennessee that had nothing to do with World War II. These are children that it was in like the late 90s. There is a movie called Paper Clips made before Harvey Weinstein became one of the most denigrated humans on the planet. But it's it's a documentary and it's about this town. But 11 million, the only way they could understand 11 million was to have something of some equal meaning. So when we're looking at data, we look at it in terms of meaning. We look at it in terms of size, we look at it in terms of time or the number of things, or we look at it in terms of the way our particular type looks at data. Many of us might think that the way we look at data is just, I've always assumed, well, I'm not a numbers person. Data isn't as important to me. But then you know what? Hannah asked me about I know all my graduation rates. I know my retention rates because that data is really important to me. So, but it's important to me because as a 4, I use mechanisms in order to advance others. That's what I do. So if you start to look at data through the lens of what you're learning about your Enneagram type, you might be surprised at the connection. So I asked Eric if we could put an optional question about data into your week. And what you would do is answer the question and you could get a few extra points. Nobody ever wants to not have few extra points, right? It never hurts. You know, that little buffer. So I'll work with Eric to find out what might work. But I want you to I'm going to send you this article I'm going to ask you to start reading the things that I send you about Enneagram. We'll have more powerful discussions as we go further. I'm just planting seeds at this point. Does anybody have any questions? No? You're all ready to go back to data, Eric? All right, then my final thing to you is June 21st, registration opens. Do you know what you're registering for next term? Make sure that you register before, I think it's August 5th, because if you don't, you are going to get hit with $100 fine, and I can't pull it off. And one time they used to let me do that, but they don't anymore. So you have to register in time, okay? If you have any questions about it, you let me know, all right? Eric, I want to thank you for letting me come in. Are you excited, Maria and Marianne, to know that you're the rarest types?
Very excited.
Not surprised, right?
I'm kind of surprised, but it's very interesting.
And I do want you to pull out your Enneagram notebook that I sent you. That's got all kinds of information. We're going to be using that as we go forward into 660, which will be next term. Okay. All right. If you guys don't have any question, I'm going to leave you to the fun of data. Eric, thank you. Can we talk later this week about the discussion we'll put in?
Yeah, I'll email you tomorrow. We can connect. I'm on campus.
That'd be great. Okay. Thank you so much. It was great to see you all.
Bye, Sandy.
Bye.
So there's only one in this group? Seriously? That's it?
So Eric, my second strongest number was 1. So I was telling Cynthia that. That's why I'm not too surprised that I'm this excited about data. So I'm not far-fetched.
So you're part of the, you can join the one bandwagon. You're very, you're always welcome.
Thanks.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip the screen so you guys are gonna look at you can watch instead of me sharing my screen because can you see the big screen all right, everybody?
Mhm.
On the TV link, can you guys see it okay? Okay.
Just don't ask me to read the small writing, because after week 4 in review, I can't read anything.
There you go. How's that, Cynthia?
Better, that's fine. Now I feel like I'm at the eye doctor, what's the
Yeah.
what's the smallest line you can read?
1 or 2? 1 or 2? All right, so let's start with, first off, do you guys have any questions about Enneagram? I mean, we've done it from a staffing perspective. It's kind of worked with us because we don't say that's kind of like the make or break when we're hiring somebody, but it's definitely something that we'll look for on a compatibility scale. Like I work with a 7 and she drives me nuts because it's always just idea, and then gone. And so we try, and I like to have like flow charts, and I like to make sure we know step by step what's happening. And so it kind of works out when you have 2 people like that that are working together because, well, it takes, you need that creative piece that a one not necessarily has or is very comfortable with sharing, because the one likes to work in the weeds and just get to the answers, and the 7 wants to create. So, but it is interesting, and you'll see more and more as you're working with the Enneagram. And I probably have done Myers-Briggs. I'm guessing you've done some other personality profile things that, there's kind of a flavor of the month that they'll come out with a new test, and anyway, it's good. It'll pay some dividends. And even like Maria, from an HR perspective, we went organizationally and had everybody take it. I think everybody in leadership took it. So, from a staffing perspective, so it was interesting. All right, so let's look back at our question 4 in review. We'll spend about like 10 minutes on that. And the overwhelming response was, these scumbags are stealing from us. That was kind of the underlying theme of our discussion post. So who wants to chime in on the TED Talk? Don't all chime in at once. You're talking over each other.
I think the part of the TED Talk that stands out for me the most is where he mentioned that we're now the product, right? And I'm a little perturbed by that, because if I'm a product, nobody's paying me for my product. So I want to know how I can get reimbursed for my product. But, you know, I think that's what stands out for me the most. And it's funny now because like after this, it's like I am really like paying attention when for different apps or services. And then just the fact of there, you know, that was also mentioned about, well, if you don't want your data out there, whatever else, pay for the service. And it's like, it's one of those damned if I do, damned if I don't situations, because either I pay for it not to be, you know, used or taken or sold off or whatever else, or either I'm paying in either in a different way, not in a monetary value, but at the fact that if I do not pay and use a free service or free app, now I'm subjecting myself to my data being sold off, chances of identity theft. And so it's like either I lose money or I lose my personal information.
So you'd be okay giving your information away if you were compensated for it?
I don't know, it depends what information that is, Eric. It depends what information. Not everything now. I mean, for me, like even with the data that they're collecting, and I think I might have said this, I'm okay with whatever is relevant to, like, so for example, music company, music streaming. If it's related to the type of music that I'm listening to, then okay, I'm fine with that. But as far as like anything outside of that, I'm not comfortable with, because it's irrelevant to you, but you're extracting all of this data and then you're selling off what is not relevant to you. And I think that's where it gets into it gets in that murky water area. And that's the part I don't like, is that you having access to all of my data and you sorting through what it is and whatever, and then you're just selling off what is irrelevant to you. Why not just take what's relevant to you?
I think it was Caroline that posted that that she was looking, maybe, I don't know, somebody was looking for something for their dog. And now their feed was like instantly kind of flooded with dog treats or dog food. So which didn't start happening last week. It's been happening all along, but now we're kind of aware of it. So that's why I think we're getting a little hypersensitive to that, because I mean, they've been taking data from us, like I said, and I think in week 1, when we were in the mall and people were asking us to take a survey, you know, that was just a different form. Now they can do it from the luxury of their air-conditioned suite. So who else has a take on this?
I mean, even as we talk about it more, like one thing I had read, like there just aren't enough kind of regulations and standards and all that when it comes to ethics. So nobody is ethical, essentially. But I think when you compare your Ubers and what's it called, like fair exchange or whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
Or even some of the opt-outs, like I think some of the companies, it's sort of how I summed it up, like I still feel very indecisive about all of it. But I think in the end, if some of these companies are making efforts to be, whether it's a little bit more open or like, I think it leans towards an attempt at trying to be like transparent and ethical in some aspect. I use that term loosely, compared to these harvesters who just like take it and run. So I don't ever feel good about it. I think some make a little bit more of a conscious effort to like kind of keep this consumer in mind.
Yeah. Has anybody opted out of like if you checked, responded to the provider and said, I don't want you to use my data? You should try that on a couple of your apps because it's really, they don't make it super easy, but you can do that. But they're going to limit your services big time. So
we did the discussion post, and then literally the next day I brought my son to get a bank account. Like, Logan doesn't have a bank account, he has a job, right? So we're sitting at Bank of America, which my mom works for, I acknowledge that, right? So we're sitting there and he's, so excited, he's got all his $1 bills, he's been saving, right? Like a bunch of checks. And so he's starting to sign it up. And so basically the woman says, and bless her heart, she's like, well, these are the things you just check. It's about your data, whatever. And I was like, oh my God. So I like took the iPad out of his hand and he like looks at me like the, kid look. He's like, don't make a scene. I'm like, what are you checking? And then I have to acknowledge, I have like 6 Bank of America accounts. Like I've checked all of these before, but I was like, but he's my kid.
Right, you're more protective.
Yeah, like I'm like, hey, he's mine and I don't want you, whatever. So she looks at me and I said, I'm in the middle of a data class in grad school. And so she stopped and she literally, I'm not even joking, brought out the book that really explained each thing he was supposed to check. And I was like, well, we could be here for the next 7 days.
Yep.
Like, so I was like, let me skim that. I'm like an idiot. I'm like, let me skim them. I'm like, okay, you're fine. But because it's a student account, there is a disclaimer where they are not going to share anything until he turns 18. So then at 18, it's like all this data they have on him is like goes out into the marketplace. So it was just really interesting that I had never even. I think because of the discussion post, like I think a lot of us are thinking about what we're surfing online or what we're using for work or apps on our, and then I was in a real life situation of setting up an account and I was like, data's here too. Like, I don't know why I didn't make that connection, but it was really interesting. And then, and as a family, we had a conversation and he was like, Mom, you've lost your marbles. Like why? He was like, well, last semester you were talking about leadership and how you communicate, right? But it was just interesting how he, once again, like, I just want to put my money somewhere. Like, I don't care what they have on it. So,
yeah, I mean, but that's, I hate to say it, but that generation is like that.
yeah.
Because they grew up on that, where we are like, wait a minute, how do you know that about me?
Yeah.
Where, our social security number was sacred, where, now they'll throw out the last 4 like nothing, because the repercussions aren't really, and also encryption's a lot better than it was when we were filling out bank requests, bank loan requests or anything. And I know, like, my parents wouldn't do any bill payment online. And I'm like, it's so much easier, Mom, just go do, and they're like, nope, they're not getting my information. I'm like, they have your information. But it was always, they are not getting my information. I'm like, well, like the old Seinfeld thing, who's they? She's like, well, people that are they're gonna hack me, and so it's just that the encryption is incredibly strong, especially with banks. But it's still, that material is not proprietary to you. That information is then sold to the highest bidder. So, one of the biggest harvesters for the student accounts is Nike, and they just inundate, because they preach fitness. And if you get like, I'm walking proof, so I have my Nike watch, but then all that data goes into Watson. So, I mean, it blows your mind of how many different branches these things have, and you wouldn't think a bank account would be affiliated with Nike, but yet because their demo is 18 to 32, they're just, it's incredible. But so let's get we have 1 minute, one more comment on our data being sold and us not capitalizing on it.
I feel like it kind of seems like they, like everything that's going on with, the way the big data is going, that they really capitalized on the ignorance of everybody. Like the younger generation is just, okay, we're on the internet, who cares? They have my data, they're gonna have it no matter what, we're on it. But now I think we're oversensitive, like you said, to it, because now we're learning all about it. So it's now like, we're not the ignorant ones anymore. And now it's like, no, we know too much now. Where the majority, I think, of people, when I talk to them about it, they're like, oh, what?
Right.
And so then once you learn about it, it's like, okay, no, now we need to do something about it. And now we want to make a stand for like the companies like Kate was talking about. And like not be capitalized on like that anymore.
Well, and we start asking the question, why do you need that information? You know, if we're outside of, you know, if we're buying an app for $1.99 on at the Apple Store, in the iTunes store, and they start asking me questions about blood type and so forth, I'd be like, why do you need that? You know, you have my $1.99 or my 206 with tax, but why do you need that information? So, and if you don't provide it, you typically don't get the app. So then, you know, then it's kind of a risk reward. Do you want it or don't you want it? And because we live in a microwave society, we want it. So we're like, all right, whatever, we'll just give it up. But if we do start asking the question, it does restrict some of the opportunities that we have, and they know that. They know that that if we really want it, we'll give it up. So it's unfortunate, but that's culturally, that's the way we function right now.
Well, and it's not to be like extra nerdy about it, but it's sort of like the whole Starbucks acquisition piece of like, it doesn't matter, like if you say no, even if like thousands of us say no, you just move on, they'll just move on to the next, or there's that many more.
Right.
It's like with the Devon, like it failed in some capacity, but it didn't matter to Starbucks because they have so much more money. You know what I mean? It's that same kind of concept of
Yep.
these like businesses are so huge that we just don't, it doesn't matter. They can just kind of flip money around in that sense.
And since people got upset about them tracking like, you know, all your clicks and everything, now they come up with a thing that just says, well, yeah, we do it. Here's the cookies. You have
And
to
we're gonna
agree
keep
with
going.
now.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Every freaking website. is
Disagree.
cookies. Yeah, and I think, okay.
All right, so good discussion. Our team project, everybody's gotten their final, or I should say the team captains got their finals in. Their skeletons of their finals. Any questions on that before we move on? They all look pretty good. So I wouldn't, you know, don't lose any sleep over it. You're all in the right direction.
And are you gonna give like specific feedback? Or like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you like,
Or like things
like
to think about?
like a presentation feedback, like when you present, make sure you highlight
Okay,
this,
okay.
things like that. So,
Thank you.
Are you just giving that to the team leader and then their job is to share that? Or
yes, yes.
Just a little control.
I wouldn't tell you.
I didn't know if you were planning on meeting with like each group individually. That's where I was going.
No, because there's only 3 submissions, or there's only 4 submissions. So I would send them out to each captain.
That's fine.
And I'll share it with you, Hannah.
She just winked when she said that she would share it with you, so I'd be
Yesterday, I
careful.
was like, what are you submitting it? So I can write.
She was, I'm gonna type in Kate submitted. I go, I didn't yet, just like give me a minute.
We were on a call. Let's try to get it done.
All right, any questions on the team project? Everybody going well with that? Doing well? Going all right? All right. Come on. This is still in the classroom. Okay, so today we're gonna go a little bit of a review of your least favorite acronym so far this semester. Sandy has the French pronunciation, Badir. I prefer to call it Bader. So it's the, we're gonna go over that. We're gonna go over the different types of data, the different ways in which to capture data. So I think ideally what I'd like to do is once we get through lecture is to just if we could break, and then if you want to use this opportunity to work with your partners, I know some of you are remote, some of you are here, but you know, or at least use this time to work on your final. But it's like we're not gonna have a ton of time, but I'm just saying it's instead of like introducing something new, I just really want to finish up with the presentation piece tonight of talking about our data, how we present. It looks like ghosting. That's my sleeve.
Eric, are you in actual Canvas?
Yeah,
The discussion question for this week talked about, like, was it somebody else read it too? Was it referencing a video or something along those lines? Like,
It talked
It
about
didn't-
watching the video.
yeah. So the videos are in read and watch.
yeah.
Like so if you go back to, I'll bring up the video when we're
Was there
getting
one
through here.
specific, or you want all of them?
It's more of it's a general,
Okay.
because
Okay. Thank
because
you.
there's a link, there's like 5 hyperlinks in a row.
Yep, yep, yeah.
It's that series that are all kind of in the
Okay,
same
okay.
gist. So we're gonna wrap up tonight with the presentation piece, because as I kind of harped on the last few weeks, presentation is the key to showing that you know what you're talking about. I mean, you could have all the analytics at your fingertips, but you really have to be able to convey that. So on understanding the output piece, we're gonna just talk a little bit about knowing where to look internally, externally, knowing what data matters, again, to us, not to our competitors. And we talked about, we did our exercise was that last week or 2 weeks ago with the wine company? That was 2 weeks ago. That's right, because it was just Kate last week. So we talked about when we were looking to collect data to figure out how we could be more effective. So we wanted to, remember our strategic question was, we wanted to raise revenue by 10%. So first off, do we need to sell more to raise revenue by 10%? Anybody? I'm a 1. I need a right answer. No, I'm just, sure. Do we need to sell more wine?
We need to sell more.
Go ahead, Stephen. What was that?
And sell them at different prices, or we can do other things to bring in revenue, I suppose.
Or you can cut, like, figure
I
out.
mean,
Correct.
yes, we discussed that week. I mean, you could even with staffing and inventory and other things like that to increase your revenue.
Right. So we don't need to sell more. We need to be more efficient. And by looking at different pieces of data, that's going to help us get more efficient. We're going to look at our closed circuit television camera to see how many people are coming in and going out. Remember, we put our little doorbell chime in there. We know we can count the foot count and how long they're in the store for. So we can also then go externally and try to find data, right? So we'll be an opportunity externally to find data.
Traffic. Well, I mean, that's what we talked about in our project.
Yes. So if you do some ads, right, you can solicit information. You can go out, you can look into databases like different wine clubs and so forth, and start soliciting those folks. So that's externally. You're buying those things typically. We'll get into that a little more later, but so if you limit yourself just to collecting internal data, you're really kind of shortchanging the process because you're not identifying these ancillary things. What's an exterior data piece that's going to affect foot traffic, let's say in New England? Weather. Now, I know you're not going to have weather on a cash register, so you're going to have to get an ancillary source to collect that data so you can look at the weather and how it affects foot traffic. So, all right, let's go into our data framework. So if you look at this here, you've got four types. I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm blocking your way here.
I have it pulled up.
Okay, so you've got your structured, your unstructured, your human generated, your machine generated. If you look at, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but an unstructured, human generated, let's try to get some examples here. What's an unstructured, human generated data piece that you could get? And somebody, I guarantee somebody in this room did that either today or yesterday or this weekend. An unstructured, human generated piece of data created. Anybody on social media this weekend or lately? Anybody tag somebody in a photo or tag a location? Okay, so that is unstructured, human-generated data, okay? If you look at our store, our structured internal data, we can survey our customers. We can do aptitude testing so we can gain the knowledge of our customers. So then maybe that's going to help us with product. We can look at our web traffic. We can look at our point of sale information. We can look at different mechanisms like we talked about closed circuit television. We could listen to phone recordings. We call a customer service place, whatever spectrum for me up in Mass. And if you say, I'm really mad, my internet keeps going down, what do you hear on the phone? What's the first thing you're going to hear on the phone?
This call is being recorded.
Exactly. This call is being recorded for what?
Quality assurance.
Yep, quality assurance. So what then happens is we're collecting that information, we're listening to that call so we can say, okay, that these folks are dealing with this idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about because his router's bad. But they're going to be super nice to me. And then somebody's going to take that call and they're going to analyze that call. What do we call analyzation of data? We're trying to pull something out of it. What do we call it? Synthesizing that data. So we're going to synthesize that phone call and we're going to listen for inflection and tone. We're going to look at it and we're going to add that literally add that field to the data we collected there to understand what the words actually mean. If there's different vernacular that escalates a call, and in this case, if you look at, I'm trying to think of a statement that might work out. Like if I said, you guys are wicked, okay? Well, if I'm reading that as a straight data, artificially intelligent, kind of a statement that's being synthesized by a machine, I'm thinking, wicked equals bad. We have a problem here. Now, if they know I'm from Massachusetts, they're like, okay, this guy loved great service, we got it. Because it's going to take somebody to synthesize that call. And that's very time consuming, very tedious, but that's why they record those lines, is to pull the inflection out of the conversation. Now, when you have a smaller organization, it's harder to do that because obviously you need software to do that. It's tougher to record. What's another obstacle with recording phone conversations? It's a biggie. Legal. They're not always legal to record a phone conversation. So you need FCC permission. So you've got to get that before you can record these conversations for customer service. Customer service support. So anyway, we're looking at these are the only 4 types that you're going to encounter. So human generated, machine generated, structured, unstructured. Let's give me an example of how about a human generated external piece of data? I'm going to distract everybody so they can't. Well, Cynthia can't read this small writing anyway, right, Cynthia?
Mhm.
I'm blocking it. How about if you go to allow?
I pulled it up already on module 5 to follow along. So I feel like I can't answer fairly.
Okay, how about if you go to a bad restaurant? What do?
Oh.
Yelp. You hammer them on Yelp. So you're generating it as a human. It's external data. I'm going to look at that data, even as a consumer. When I'm making a decision of where to go to eat, if I'm on vacation, I'll pull up Yelp and I'll say, okay, this place serves raw seafood. Let's get out of here. And I don't mean sushi. So that's a human generated external piece of data created. All right. What's a machine external piece of data? that we've talked about a number of times in here. And another hint, when you hop in your car,
GPS location.
yep, GPS. They know where we're going. How do they know where we're going?
Our phones.
Well, yeah, repetitive. It's analyzing that. It's taking time into consideration. The time we're starting the vehicle, if it's within a certain range, they're assuming that we're going to a certain place. So that's that's generated externally. It's data that we can collect. We can collect it from Toyota Motor Corporation, from Volkswagen. We can purchase that information, and we can determine where people are going, how fast they're going, how long it's taking them to get to a certain place from a certain place. We can determine traffic patterns through that. But another,
I was just gonna jump in, even like when I was coming here, I just throw it in just to see if there's like traffic over the bridge.
Yep.
And today I just opened Waze and it said, are you going to 310 Road? And I was like, oh, I hate that. And I come here once a week and I've only been here like 4 times or whatever. So it's just, but it's even to that point where like, in some ways you might look at it and be like, oh, wow, this is great. They know where I'm going. But like, they know on Wednesdays, this is where I go.
right, Wednesdays at that time. So they didn't pop into if you had Waze on this morning, it wouldn't have popped on.
No,
You know?
but that, like, it was just this exact time or whatever. And I was like,
Stalking you.
yeah, that's-
So another GPS item that if I worked, let's say that I worked at a Target, okay? What are some of the things that they use GPS for in Target? Where I am in store. Yep. What else?
Probably how long you're standing in certain areas.
How long I'm standing in certain areas, how long I'm standing, how long I'm waiting to cash out, how long I'm in the store for, because remember when we did our wine store, the longer I'm in the store, the more likely I am to buy something. So Target would like you to stay in the stores longer. So how do they get you to stay in the store longer? It is Target, so I mean, it's easy to get lost in there, but what are some of the amenities they offer to kind of keep you in there?
Coffee.
Starbucks, yep. And I know everybody's had one of those hot dogs. It's on the steel rollers under the plexiglass shield for like 4 hours, right? That's a nice golden brown. We're ready to eat it. But they have food. They have they've combined it now. A lot of the Targets have the grocery stores built in, so you can multitask. So they want to get you in the store longer, and they can track where you are in the store through your GPS, which is your phone or your wearable device, your Fitbit, all information they'll buy. So these are your four structured, unstructured, internal, external, and then breaking them down by human generated versus machine generated. There's no mystery. There's nothing else that factors into this, but it's a good point of reference when you're actually looking to build a database. What's the least expensive way to build a database? If I'm collecting data, what's the least expensive way to do it? I want to do human generated or machine generated internal data because it's structured, by the way. So it's already there for me. I need less of a synthesizing process to get that information. Let's see here. So we're looking at this again, the 4 V's. You got your volume, so the amount of data we're getting from these things, or that we're buying or we're collecting internally. The velocity, the speed at which data moves. Remember we talked about, somebody asked a couple weeks ago, when what's the turnaround time when when a broker batches out a bunch of data, or a harvester batches out a bunch of data and a broker brings it in and then starts vetting it to these different vendors. It's literally milliseconds that happens. And if you look at something you mention something, or if you went on and say, you're looking for a refrigerator, before you can scroll to the bottom of the page, you will see an ad for refrigerator. So it happens that fast, so the velocity is significant. The velocity is much more, I guess, much more pertinent to the super places like the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. For the smaller places, it's more, it's to make sure you're getting the right data. And if you have a smaller organization and you've only got, a single person working on it, you're not going to have the turnaround time that obviously these brokers do with these algorithms that are created to do this. Our variety, the types of data that we're collecting, structured, unstructured, internal, external. Again, structured internal data, cheapest one we can get our hand on. When we're looking at stuff through, these Facebook vendors, that's external, typically structured. A Facebook tag, a picture tag, a location tag is unstructured external data. That's typically more pricey. So because that has to be synthesized a little bit more. And the veracity, is it good data? Is it something that we really want? Or is it something that we know that, like, again, Augie and Ray's, if Wendy's is doing it, they both sell hamburgers, they should be doing it? Well, that's not the case. It's not good data for both organizations. It's good data for Wendy's maybe, because they have the volume and they can turn things around faster. And you don't want to collect it for the sake of collecting it. So again, back to our four, our structured internal, unstructured internal, structured external, unstructured external. Structured internal, it's free. We talked about like some of the, let's see, Pratt & Whitney with the flight, hold on, I'm just trying to think of the name, the Rolls-Royce engines that are in the C-130s, I think. And these engines are like 55 years old, but they have all of these sensors in here that tell them when something's about to like go south, and they can fix these things before they have problems. So it was kind of costly to put all of these sensors in, but then the cost totally subsides when you have these sensors collecting data and you're swapping out parts proactively. And especially in the airline industry, if you shut a runway down, if you shut a particular runway down for 1 minute, it's estimated that you're losing $250,000 for 1 minute, based on air traffic that you're not bringing in, based on reputation. If your flight's down, the word of mouth. If you hate it, you tell 9 people. If you love it, you tell 2 people. That theory. But it's about $250,000 for a minute when a runway has to be shut down, because you're then delaying every other flight, and it's not typically a minute. So that's how they can extrapolate out and figure out that it's pretty pricey. And if you can get these repairs done proactively instead of reactively, you're using your internal data to collect that, and you've got a history of it, you know that you're in a much better position. Your transaction records, your sales. What was a big problem that we saw early on with Starbucks? What weren't they doing? Owner loyalty. You guys are way too quiet tonight. So they didn't know who their customers were. They didn't know what they were selling. Maybe that kind of contributed to, well, sure, I'm sure they'd like tea, but you really want to know who your customer is, and you do that through your point of sale data. You do that through the surveys in your store. You do that by the closed circuit televisions. You do that, so you get to know your customers, because the big thing about the data, we want to know more. We want to be in their customers' heads more so than they are. We want to know what they want when they walk through the door before they know what they want when they walk through the door. Okay, unstructured internal data, a little more work to do. We automate a lot of our services, but we can look at our closed circuit television. We can synthesize that. We can get our conversational data where our customers are walking in, and I want to speak to your manager. By the way, anybody see the IKEA spoof by the that stand-up comedian. It is so funny where he like answers questions. He's not an IKEA employee, but he answers questions like that get asked to retail employees. Like, you know, I want to speak to your manager. He goes, you know how retail works. You know, I mean, it's pretty funny. Let's see if I can pull it up. But anyway, conversational data. So if if I work at let's say I work at Sears. Is there any Sears around here anymore? Okay, so J.C. Penney's, right?
I was gonna say, I don't know if they're.
Oh, man.
No, they got bought out.
Macy's? Is there a Macy's?
Yeah.
They're going up.
Okay. All right, so if I wanted to get some good conversational data internally from Macy's, who would I speak to?
About Macy's,
Yep,
people that are shopping there, or customers,
customers,
or
yep,
their employees.
employees. Would I talk to the custodians? Talk to everybody, right? So this, now we're talking external, internally for these particular categories, but even if you look at it from like an HR perspective, you can look at your employee reviews, you can look at your employee feedback within those conversations about, hey, tell me about your customer interactions in the conversations. I'm going to collect data, I'm going to synthesize it, and I'm also going to be able to get employee feedback. They're going to say, you know what, this person was really mad because she tried to return this and we wouldn't take it because of our policy. And then the employee might say, well, our policy really sucks because I see it happen all the time. So granted, that's like, you know, you can't really take it for gospel because, you know, it happens all the time, but you can use it as a way in which you start collecting data, say, hey, maybe we need to look at our return policy if we have other employees that are saying that, so that you can kind of develop trends. And what do trends allow us to build? What kind of analytics? Predictive. Yep. So again, the other more structured internal data, you're looking at emails, you're breaking those down, you're listening to internal phone conversations, and not to be like a creeper, but you're doing these things so you can kind of get the gist of what's happening. Because you can't be looking at every email. You can't be, you know, listening to every phone call. So you have to develop patterns in which you can do this. And then these algorithms can search out keywords. So we identify a keyword and a series of keywords and go back to our, you know, the service was wicked. That without synthesizing that, it comes off as it's going to be dropped into the negative bin, where in actuality it was an affirmation of service. So it has to be synthesized and it has to be vetted, and that algorithms have to be developed to basically monitor tone, tenor, and even like if you're in, there's just, you know, from the south to the Midwest to the East, there's just terminology is different. So if I'm Home Depot, I can't use the same synthesizing model for my stores in, you know, Boston and Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then Athens, Georgia. I have to use different, I have to modify that model. So it is pricey when you're trying to vet these things, but it's also less expensive than trying to collect everything and then having everything done automated through algorithms and through like artificial intelligence. Okay, structured external, obviously outside your organization, anybody has access to it. You can access government data, which is a lot. We saw that recently in the last year. And what kind of data are we accessing in this last year?
Because of COVID, health.
Health, COVID. So who are we pulling information from? So we were pulling information from the government, from the Center for Disease Control, from World Health Organization. We're pulling empirical data they've collected forever to say, okay, this is what we're up against. So That's external. A lot of this stuff we can get is, I mean, it's government information we can pull for nothing. Sometimes you have to purchase external data when it's structured. Database mailing lists, things that are, we can specifically look at, we can pull out an individual or a certain demo. SMS, we can look at text messages. And then remember the John Deere chat we talked about where they had the sensors incorporated into all of their competitors' tractors, and they could see or their tractors and their competition or other farmers that they hadn't necessarily had a relationship with. They were collecting data on those sensors when those pieces of equipment would be used throughout their region. So let me just see, what's our other one? Our unstructured external. This stuff right here is probably where you can get the most. It's probably going to cost you the most, but you're going to be able to get the most information out of. You could actually be a smaller organization and be able to analyze your social media posts, your likes. I mean, that's probably the simplest form. When we post something, we get that little dopamine hit, right? How do we know it was a successful post? What's the barometer for that?
The amount of likes we get.
Yep. So if we post something that we're super high on and we think it's awesome, this is great, but it gets like 10 likes, like what the heck? So then we were like, oh, you know why? I posted that late. I posted that late last night. Maybe some folks were working or maybe, you know, so we always try to justify it, but that's what we use as an internal mechanism to measure. Well, as an organization, if I'm I'm trying to think, we'll go back to Macy's. They're measuring the success of a post by the, how soon it goes viral. So they know they're going to get likes because, you scroll through, you just click the little heart button on Instagram, whatever. But so they're going to measure that through an algorithm that is going to look at not necessarily just, yeah, I liked it, but what else are they going to look at when they analyze that post? And this is all way we can collect this from an unstructured perspective.
You mean like who liked it? Like the people liking it?
Who is the one? Yep. What else?
What time?
What
Were they
time?
active online?
What time they were, what time they accessed it? What's another timepiece that they look at?
How long?
How long they were hovering, okay? So they can then say, all right, well, this person that lives in Westfield, Massachusetts, was on this site at 10:30 at night and spent 3 minutes on this particular page. And what's another piece that they look at after that? If they come back, but if they click through.
No, right.
So if they click through, if they leave Instagram, you know how you get the little warning or whatever, Facebook, you're leaving Facebook, or you're leaving Instagram. So then you click through and you're on their page and they time how long you're on each page. So it's pretty interesting.
Can I ask a naive question?
Sure.
So say you're on Instagram and say like the MS Society, we have like a couple different pages or whatever. And can you tell how long I'm like looking? Because you're not technically on, like say it's in my feed.
Yep.
Like I have to actually, like the data's tracked when I click on the page.
Yes.
Okay.
But it also tracks your hovering too.
Even if it's just in my feed?
Yep. If your icon is on it, so
Yeah.
Kate's asking if your page is just open to it, is it going to then, is the meter running basically?
Yeah.
But if your icon is over the image, and most images that they have are what they call like a movable image where you're either going to, there's a bar along the bottom of the page or the bottom of the ad that will say, click here for more information. So once you click on that page, and essentially the meter does start running and you're looking at what's that site will measure how long you're on each page. And then you'll get the obnoxious email or text
from Macy's or whatever saying, hey, we noticed that you didn't buy, or there's stuff in your inbox, or there's
Oh,
stuff
I
in your
love that,
cart.
though. I'm not gonna lie, as a consumer, I know, Eric, you're probably like, Jesus, yeah, right? So like, if there's a dress I like we all play this game, right? You put it in your cart, and then you leave, and then they send it to you and ask if you would like 15% off. Yes, I know, it's cheesy, but we've all played that.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Elise.
I realize,
So I like data, I want them to give me the 15% off.
so to the novice, they click and buy on the first time.
Yes.
But for the pros, they play the game that the data miners from the department stores and the retailers will say, sure, we want our break-even point for this dress is $48. And we're selling it for $69.99 right now, but we're gonna tell Hannah if she comes back, we're gonna give her 15% off. And as long as we sell it for 48 bucks, our overhead is so low, we're good. And we've all done it where we feel like Black Friday is the biggest scam in the history of retail, because you're going to get, if they want to unload that product, they're going to unload the product. You don't have to get up at 2:30 in the morning to stand in line to get something, because it's going to be that price again the closer you get to the holidays. So, but anyway.
I wish it was that simple on timelines. It's never that.
Well, you're in retail.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, well, I work at Walmart, so we're straight through. We start Thursday morning at 7 a.m. and it's open through until Friday night.
oof.
And I'm the staff that's doing the 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning. And I'm sucking on coffee and goddamn joke. So keep going.
So we're conditioned that, that we're, if we buy it on the first try, shame on us. So like Hannah's saying, let's get the hello, hey, remember us text or email that comes out. We're like, okay. And then we go to Retail Me Not, and we see if there's any codes that we can plug in to try to get, and they factor all this in. They already know that we're going to do that. They know us better than we know them. That's part of data mining. So, but it's very interesting how, we do it almost in a competitive nature. Because at the end of the day, if we really like the dress, we're going to buy it. But if we can manipulate them a little bit, then it's a win-win. We're getting the dress we want, and they've cut the price, but they're still making money. So it's interesting. It's a good game. So check your check your inboxes. And I know a lot of us too, like, and do you know Dan Noonan? Everybody know Dan Noonan here? He's now down in Bridgeport, but Dan is our VP of enrollment. He taught a social media class that everybody would basically tweet to Zappos. Everybody know what Zappos is, a shoe company? So Zappos the class would all tweet individually, and then they would then register the times in which Zappos took to respond to their tweet. Not some blanket, thank you for texting, or tweeting, we'll be back tomorrow at 8. Every one of them is within 3 minutes. Every single person, and not in dance class, I'm saying if you tweet Zappos, somebody will reply to that tweet in 3 minutes. So I tried to test that theory with Dan. I was in his office. This is like 5 or 6 years ago. And I went to, I bought a pair of shoes at the Bass outlet, like up in Lake George, New York. And so, and I normally, like for work, I normally wear like Adidas, like I'm a sneaker guy usually. So, so I never wear these shoes, and I was wearing them. I probably had them for like, I don't know, a couple months now. I'm like, all right, well, we had a function. So I put the shoes on, and I was walking from my office to Dan's, and the heel just came right off. It was just bucks, low heel. It was a suede shoe. The heel came right off. I'm like, are you kidding me? I dropped like $100 for these shoes, and the heel's gone. That's like, So I ended up emailing, I emailed the folks at Bass and I said, hey, I just got these shoes, like, and I heard great things about Bass customer service. I just got these shoes like a couple months ago and I hardly ever wear them and they're like new, but the heel fell off. It completely came unglued. So I get a response immediately from Bass. We're sorry, we have a 30-day policy on that. I'm like, 30 days, are you kidding me? I go, look at the shoe. And I sent them a picture of the shoe. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I was walking around like I was drunk because I had no heel on one shoe and I'm bouncing off the other one. So I go up to Dan's office and I'm smoked. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I gotta go buy a pair of shoes. Now I can't walk around like this all day. So Dan's like, watch this. And he gets on his computer and he's like, loyal Bass customer. And he put the @ Bass. So tag them in the thing, tag them. So loyal Bass customer, I'm done. What do you got similar, Zappos? And guys, within 5 minutes, I had both companies in a bidding war to get me a new pair of shoes, right? So, and I swear to God, I had Bass, I had Zappos come back first saying, and they tagged Bass and they said, well, we're really sorry. We can take care of you. Once you send us those shoes and we'll send you a new pair. And then Bass came right back and said, we're really sorry about that. Please send us your shoes. We'd love to keep you as a loyal customer. So I ended up getting a pair from Bass. They sent me a pair and I gave them to a student that needed shoes for graduation. I just said, here, what size do you want? And they sent me a pair, like I got it within like 3 days. So, but it's incredible how that presence, how somebody was able to, and you know, they're not sitting at a computer and saying, hey, we just got a mention from Zappos. They're not doing that. The algorithm picked that up and allowed them to generate a nudge to one of their folks, and they just got right on it. So artificial intelligence combined with human intelligence is what created that response. But just for haha, sometimes tag a company. Dan Noonan then, not long after that, was flying back from a conference and United Airlines canceled his flight because of capacity. There weren't enough people and, something like that. So he was due the next day back on campus and he texted me. He said, watch my Twitter feed. So I'm like, all right, what's up? So I went and I got on his Twitter feed and he is just hammering United Airlines. I mean, hammering them. I will never fly here again. And sure enough, here comes Spirit Air, Southwest. I think there was one more. Not one of the bigger ones, but like, we'd be very happy to take care of you, sir. They flew out of the same hub. We can be, if you go to gate, whatever, we can give you a flight and we'll honor that voucher. So, I mean, it's so cutthroat, but it's these algorithms that will pick up these buzzwords and look at the time. And if everything kind of falls into place where they see that, they'll look at maybe, they wouldn't be, if Dan had a history of just hammering on United Airlines, they'd probably say, all right, you know what, buddy, get out of here. You're just a pain in the butt customer. But, they look at, they a lot of things factor in. They look at his profile, look at how frequently he travels. They look at the different places he's been tagged in. All this data went into making the decision of, hey, come on, fly with us. They're not taking a chance on somebody that's just some rogue flyer that wants to complain about their service to get a free meal. So, anyway, that kind of gets back down into like your Yelp reviews, photo tags, things in which you can collect to make a decision that you're going to have to do a little work if you don't have the synthesizing equipment or the tools to create these algorithms. You can still do these things on your own. You can look at Zappos's, you can look at their page and just go into their customer interactions and see that they're predominantly favorable because they have great customer service. But you have the ability to make that decision based on you doing your own research on that. So that's external unstructured data that you have to kind of think and process. It's not going to lay it out for you that of 1,000 customers, 975 are very happy. You have to do that math. So, all right, what do we got here? So gathering, when you're, and this is a little redundant, and we're going to get into some beta, which is more redundant next, but you want to make sure that the machine that you're building, and machine is metaphorical, the machine you're building, you're building it custom for you. So you're collecting what you need to collect, and you're going to create receptacles when you're building this. So by receptacles, it's ways in which to capture that data. And you're going to enhance these, and you're going to continue to develop programs in which you know your customers better than they know themselves. Very simple. Timestamps, you look at when you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, timestamps, location, amount of time on the page. These are all things that are collected, and you can collect. Even as a smaller organization, you can collect these things. You can buy this information, but is it as valuable? You know, maybe not. I mean, unless you see, you know, certain folks that are hovering over pages or locations that are constantly being tagged so you can start marketing, but it's not as useful to everybody. Again, that's why we build our model on what we need to collect. So let's go to beta. Before I run through this whole thing, are we all good on beta? Has everybody got a good handle on that? I haven't gone through all the week 3 writings yet. But it's as Sandy mentioned, and as I told you, that's this week 3 paper, that's probably aligning with what you're going to defend with. And to kind of put your minds at ease, the writing the summary and being able to state opinion, like our week 2 assignment, is very, 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 I'm not going to say it's difficult because you know what you're talking about. You want to make sure that you're referencing these key elements, SWOT, beta. So you're not going to sit and tell me that I know all about data analytics because Howard Schultz didn't do his homework and didn't use beta. No, you're going to talk about when you're defending that paper that I understand that the collective framework of beta involves, and you're going to go right through the acronym, and you're going to pull examples of that when you're doing your defense. And it's very simple. You're going to keep your introduction, you're going to keep your conclusion, and your thesis statement's going to be maybe 2 paragraphs, and you're going to knock this thing off in a page and a half. It's easy. I'm telling you, it's easy. Just keep your work. All you want to do is make sure that you have the papers that you're going to use for that. And switching over to a new learning management system with Canvas, where they don't gather and keep those for you. Like Sandy said, keep a OneDrive or keep a drive on your computer or even a flash drive and back it up where you're holding on to this stuff because you're going to be using it again when you're doing your portfolio. So again, are we good on beta? Do you want to go over more of the beta stuff? Hannah said yes. I don't get it. Actually, if Hannah shook her head no any further, she would have popped it out that window that's to her immediate left. So our framework, again, the business questions, the analysis, the data to support a hypothesis, the insight, and then the recommendations. I'd like to jump into recommendations.
Actually, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Kind of in reference to the assignment we just handed in. Like when you're going over like the insights and recommendations, they blend into each other, right?
Yeah, because typically.
Because of this, that's why you're saying that.
Yeah, so if you're to this point,
Yeah.
you're obviously supporting your hypothesis. So there's going to be some bleed where it goes into it, but you're going to want to make sure that you've got a clear delineation of my recommendation is. So your recommendation is going to be based on the insight you came up with. So it's like you can't have one without the other. Otherwise, it would be no I in there, right? So again, who, what, when, where, why, how, when we're identifying our business questions. When we did Bader with the wine store, we wanted to raise our revenue by 10% each month, okay? So who are we gonna go after? How are we gonna do it? Why were we gonna do it? When were we gonna do it? And even when, if you can look at it from a staffing perspective, we figured out we can close our shop 2 hours early every night and still make the same amount of money. So again, our business questions. Our analysis plan, we want to look at specific measurable items. So we want to be able to deal in real things. We don't want to deal in hypotheticals like, well, if it snows for a week, we're not going to have any foot traffic. We're going to deal in real numbers, and then we deal with all the variables we're trying to support our hypothesis. Then we can look at our data and say, look, it hasn't snowed for a week straight in 20 years, so let's not use that as a factor. Collecting our data to prove our hypothesis. We can look at, again, we can funnel down as much as we want on this, but you're going to use what works for you. And you're going to use what supports your defense or what blows it out of the water and allows you to start fresh. Our insight, so we look at our patterns, prove or disprove our hypothesis, and presenting our findings. I missed my, where's my R? Uh-oh, it duplicated a page on me. I don't know what R means.
The R is on the, yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I was looking at the page numbers up here and I was skipping over it. I was totally lost. I didn't know what R meant. So, because I've dabbled with Bader a couple of times, or as Sandy calls it, the beer. And so our recommendations is what we're really going to focus on towards the end of this tonight, because again, that's the pretty important piece of how we present, but also different ways in which we present. I'm going to show you some charts and how it's kind of the wrong way and the right way to do things. Analytics, which you're probably pretty sick of hearing about already. The definition, again, the systematic computation and analysis of data or statistics. Recapping, data is nothing but a collection of information, okay? Don't get lost in the weeds. It's just a collection of information, and you're pulling out of that information what you need, okay? Information resulting from the systemic analysis of data or statistics. That's all analytics is. So we've collected our information, and now we're going to really drill down and understand what we need and why we need it. So here's the types of tools that we use. You've got your Hadoop, which I don't want to spend any time on at all, because that's these massive collection devices, which we'll probably never use. We'll never come across them. Your text analytics, where you extract a large value from an unstructured model. Again, unstructured, it's all over the place. We've got to synthesize that. So we do text analytics. Sentiment analysis, okay? Extracting the opinions from audio, video, or text. What's an example of sentiment analysis? We talked about it earlier. Kind of a Yelp review because there is sentiment involved. But if we were to extract it, what would be another piece that we would have, which on the surface wouldn't be, it might not be as easy to identify as like a visual Yelp review. Like, remember like what IBM did when they programmed with Twitter, what did they use? Think.
When they did Wimbledon? No.
No, so IBM basically built this glorified algorithm, which they can do what? They can look at. Anybody? Starts with an I, then an N, with an F.
Information.
Oh, no. L after the F, INFL. E.
Influence. Oh, no.
Yeah, just like
C.
with the words.
All right. we'll have inflection. So inflection is the way in which it's measurable, but you need to be able to collect the data. And using a sentiment analysis, you can pull, that's what Twitter does now with IBM, they can pull inflection out of a tweet and understand what's actually meant by that tweet. And then make an assumption of where this person might be shopping, like an inflection. Oh, hold on, I gotta let it back in. So when I was talking about BAS, the inflection was your service sucks. I didn't say that, but that's the tone and tenor of the tweet. And then they're like, okay, well, now people are going to think we're lousy. Let's help this guy out. Then you've got your image analytics. So extract meaningful insight from pictures, maps, MRIs, x-rays. Okay, when you break your arm, what does the doctor do? How do they know that?
X-ray.
Because they can see the break. Okay, that's an image analysis. MRI, same thing. Also, I went to buy those Bass shoes at Lake George. So boom, they know I shop at Lake George. So they're going to tag me and they're going to sell my information to the Lake George Chamber of Commerce if they want to reach out, try to find people to come and stay at Lake George. So an image analysis is looking and tagging and all those good things. Another way in which to create your data model. Video analytics, we might have talked about this week one, but not just necessarily for retail, not necessarily for like HR, but the security information. Boston Marathon bombers were caught using video analytics, where they pieced together all of the department stores and the restaurants, closed circuit television cameras, and they kind of followed these folks along. Voice analytics, when you're pulling out, and this is inflection more so dealing with telephones, dealing with web chats. If you get on to chat with, real quick aside, who had to reprogram their Echo based on Amazon Sidewalk? Anybody? Really?
I mean, I read all about it, and then I was reading other stuff with people being like, this isn't that big a deal, and then I read comments, and then I forgot about it.
Oh, I don't have.
All right, so Echo Sidewalk, like if you're not familiar, it's I'm sorry, Amazon Sidewalk. It's a service now that allows, it kind of shares your personal network. It shares information with, it creates kind of like a community network for you, so your neighbors and so forth. And you can go in and disarm it and basically, or disable it and shut it off. But if you do it, essentially if you do it by voice, supposedly what's happening is that it's opening another portal if you do it by voice. So anybody that has an Echo, you get like the notifications like, hey, it's been 6 weeks since you ordered this food. So it's kind of, it takes that information now, and it's going to create a whole separate pool and profile based on you and based on your sidewalk, your community. So interesting stuff, read up on it. Don't be like Kate and just blow it off, because
Now I'm in the
it is
app.
important.
I watched the whole video on how you turn it off too, and
Okay, so, and then data mining. Data mining really is allowing us to help to build that predictive model. And predictive analytics is, again, what we're trying, that's our end goal, is to be able to know what our customers and our employees are doing before they know what they're doing, based on a predictive history and a pattern. We do that by mining that particular information.
is mining different than harvesting?
Yeah, mining that we're actually going down and drilling for the information. Okay, harvesting is, hey, here's what we drilled, and have at it.
When I was like Googling, but when I was doing research for, I guess it's a discussion post, whatever I was answering, data mining kept coming up as well, like in the same article. So in my mind, I actually thought it was just a different way to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at it even metaphorically, like a miner, goes down and gets it. They have to really create it. And it's not harvested until it gets up to the surface. So it's got to be mined before it can be harvested. Here we go, visualization. When you're presenting, recognize that the presentation matters. So don't blow it off. And this is really, take this to heart for your final. It's very informal with us. You know, we're a pretty loose group, but this is serious stuff when you're presenting, and practice that. It's not about making it pretty. It's about making it understandable. The old acronym, keep it simple, stupid. That's pointed at me. And you're a data architect, taking a mass of information and making it tell a story. So like everybody's going to collect different things. We all have different perspectives of how how Starbucks kind of mailed it in when it came to researching and purchasing Tivana. But you're going to own it, and you're going to massage the data to form the answer that you want. It's not going to be a stock answer that we're all going to come up with. That's why we can have every group do a presentation on this, and there's all going to be a little bit of a different perspective based on the research and data that you've collected going into it. And every assignment leading up to it, including this week's with, excuse me, with the Tivana perspective, is something that you're going to use as you present in your final. So this is a chart that, if you look at it, we're gonna, and I'm sorry, coming your way, Lisa, but you've got these two charts here, right? Now, if I'm looking at which job pays the most, okay, and I know this print is fine if you don't have it up. What's the easier way to find out of these two charts? What chart should I reference to get that information quicker, cleaner? What do you think?
I feel like the right one.
Yeah, it is the right one. But the left one looks so much better, right? The left one looks really cool. Like, oh, wow, look at, you got your little stick figures there, and you've got all your shaded pie charts.
It looks like they put more effort into, like, you would think that group, like worked harder on it. But when you're really, like, if you ask me a question about it, you really have to like dig in to figure out what's what. Absolutely.
And that's the whole point of our presentation. This looks great. This tells the story. So if I can, like, I'm reading it right now, okay? It's 1,000 pages, right? If I could get this story in 300 pages, that'd be sweet. I would love it. But I know Stephen King, you know, if you ask him what time it is, he tells you how to build a watch. So I know it takes a long time to get to his stuff. This one I really like. I think it looks great, but it's going to take me a lot longer to look at each particular salary in here to answer that question. Excuse me. We're over here, I can tell you right now, these are the folks that make the most money. Which pays the least? Go through the same thing. Start looking and seeing, okay, well, that's 172.5, that's 192, that's 216. When I can go right here and say, what pays least? Boom, I just drop right down.
Does it also depend on who you're presenting to, though? Like how you're showing the data? Like, so, yes, I think, right, to answer your question, the one on the right is the way you go. But I mean, I don't know, maybe, you know, like kids, or, you know, like I like whatever the topic is, like, I don't know, like, you know, like I'm thinking of elementary kids, like the one on the left, they would be more engaged with. I'm not saying that that's who this data was collected for, but is that part of the conversation, right? Who we're going to present this to? It depends on how we make it.
So, like, what's rule one of public speaking? Know your audience. So if I'm presenting to, let's say presented to a room full of executives for the Institute of Colorblindness, right? This is definitely going to be great, but it's going to be lost, or this one is going to be easier to read. So again, know your audience. So to Hannah's point, this will work with some. But if I'm incorporating this, if I'm embedding this in a presentation, if it's a visual presentation, I might include both. Say, if you look at this Google chart right here, this is this breakdown of this chart. So I would incorporate both if I had the space to do that. Okay, because I'm giving them the aesthetics and I'm also giving them the story. if I was putting it into a paper, excuse me, I would put this one, if I'm embedding it into an essay, and then I would have a narrative after it. And I'd put my narrative. But it's a very good point. You know your audience. If somebody is a visual learner, if you're in a room with visual learners, or if you're presenting to a person that prefers to do a little of the research on their own, then that's the better chart. But you want to keep it as simple as possible when you're presenting. This is pretty significant. So we throw numbers out there and it really starts to wake people out, okay? Don't make your audience count zeros. So don't put, 2.3999000. No, you don't. You want to shift your data to the right. You want to skip your decimals, consistently round up or round down. So you're not going to round up on the high numbers and down on the low numbers. And again, keep it very simple, concise. Don't put it into a flow chart. Don't put it into a pie chart. If you could show it in a simple 2-column, 8 or 10 or 12 row Excel cutout and clip, because all you want to do, you're not selling your compare and contrast right now. You're just showing the differences and highlighting the differences when you're presenting your data. Because you have several variables that you want to kind of delineate between, the highest and lowest. And you typically, when you're presenting in charts, and I just want to show you guys, I'm going to start here first with our pie chart, right? What's the most, the most elements you should be tracking in a pie chart? Anybody want to guess? To be effective, obviously you can do more.
Okay.
Is that a 6?
3 or 4.
3 is ideal, 4 is pushing the boundaries. Now, remember our pretty Google chart here? Look at how difficult, you've got sub wedges in here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, exactly, 10, 11. So you've won 11 rooms in Trivial Pursuit. You've got 11 different subcategories that you have to track based on color. Now, in a good pie chart, you've got 3, maybe 4, because that will show the true contrast. Like you're doing the Facebook to YouTube comparison of where do I get my video from? Where do I get my fails video from? You're going to look at 71% of the people go to YouTube, 29% go to Facebook, 0.2 go to Twitter. So you're showing an extremely large number, pedestrian number, 29%, and then you've got that wedge. So we know just by looking at the wedge, without even looking at the numbers, looking at the wedge, what do we know about Twitter?
No,
No, persona non grata. People aren't going there. That's something that they're not looking at. What do we know about YouTube?
The most popular.
Yeah, 7 out of 10 people looking for that video are going to YouTube. And then we know, just based on the wedge, the other player in the game is Facebook. So we can tell just by looking at that. But if we had, going back to our salary Trivial Pursuit model, we have 11 different components of the pie chart that we have to break down. So again, keep it simple, limit that when you're presenting to just a few. You can go 4, but like when I was showing the different types of data, I intentionally created a 4-section pie chart because it's equally divided up 4 ways for this particular purpose. Typically, a pie chart's not going to be equally divided 4 ways because it's not showing anything significant. We're not learning anything about that. So you guys all follow? All right, so your other most common pie charts, your spark line. The thing about a spark line is you can squeeze that into, this is probably more used in essays because it doesn't take up a lot of space. and you're compressing a lot of history into a small, maybe a 1 to 2 inch column, row when you're compressing this data. So you can encapsulate a lot of information and get a pretty good indication of how things worked, because you can see the lulls, you can see the spikes, and it's effective more so in a paper because of its ability to be concise than it is if you were to present in a large, like in a PowerPoint or a Prezi. A spark line chart, also pretty common, more so in a presentation, also can be used in a essay, but you really are just seeing through an axis how things progressed or how they regressed. Pretty simple to figure out. And I'll talk a little bit later about adjusting the axis. So what a major no-no is. Your bar chart, also very common. The whole point again of these charts is you want to emphasize distance and gap. Like if I was to ask you, not even knowing what this chart meant, the best places to buy a cheeseburger in the world are, now, I wouldn't have to know that nobody, I mean, I can look at that and say, okay, I'm not going to Portugal for a cheeseburger. I might go to Russia, maybe France, but it's definitely in the US. So we don't really need to, we know that the delineation is so large that this is kind of not even a contender, like the 2% with Twitter. And Germany's not, so we can almost break that down to the top 3, maybe the top 4, but the bar chart allows us to see the disparity between the categories. The other piece with the bar chart, it works great in a Prezi or a PowerPoint. It also works great in a paper on a standalone, because it's very tough to fit a bar chart into an essay, especially APA with your formatting. So the bar charts tend to get squeezed out a little bit and they don't present as well. Well, we kind of just talked about this, so let's go. Do's and don'ts. So don't use the axis to mislead. What does that mean? Don't use the axis to mislead. I'm going to block that so you guys can't see it. So if I'm trying to show that, and this is a stat for any people that watch sports, he was 13 for his last 25 at bats. What happened for the first 150 at bat? Why do you just pick 13 of the next 25? So people will cut data.
Like fixing the data.
Exactly, to make their point. So they'll, it's not a true capture of what it is. So if you start adjusting your axis to say, well, we're only going to look from, like, if we're adjusting our axis right here and say, well, we're going to say now that we're going to start at 2000. So if we start at 2000, what happens to our chart? What do we lose? We lose the UK, we lose Russia, we lose Germany, we lose Portugal. If I start at 1,000, okay, I lose Germany and Portugal. So by skewing that, I'm dropping off some, but I'm not getting a true reflection of what's happening globally. Or if I was to start it at 2,600, I'd say, oh my, France is just like right here. France is like right there, but the USA dominates. Well, not necessarily. If I look at bigger picture, there's only really about maybe 1,100 difference in whatever quantity we're measuring here. But if I'm moving my axis over and say, no, we're starting at 2,500, it looks like France is just barely in the game. And that's why people try to manipulate that to sell their point. So always be aware of that.
Is it more, like when you first started saying it, I was thinking of a meeting I was on the other day, and the girl talked about fundraising being up 200% from, say, last year, or whatever that looks like, but there was no other, like, there were no numbers of what the fundraising was, what it was before, like that whole piece. Is that included in it as well, or is it omitting, like you were just saying, how like if you change the numbers, it omitted that piece? Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that was that was manipulated to show a number. to prove a point that this is how great it is right now. Many of us have probably seen, holy smokes, what happened there? Many of us have probably seen, do not adjust your televisions, but there's a meme out right now that shows like a pallet from Home Depot of lumber for 2000, the year 2020, and a pallet of lumber, what you would get for the same dollar amount in 2021, right? And then the point of the meme is to show you that the cost of lumber has gone up exponentially. But what they should do, if they're being truthful, is go to 2019, because we weren't building houses in 2020. We're in a global pandemic. So look at the cost of lumber in 2019 and compare it to now us kind of getting back into the workforce in 2021. But it doesn't fit the narrative. So the person that's putting that information out there chooses a cohort period that solves for their particular need. So that's why, again, my favorite all-time Denzel Washington quote is if I read the newspaper, if I don't read the newspaper, I'm uninformed. If I read the newspaper, I'm misinformed. So you have to do your own homework when you're researching these things to see that, wow, it's horrible. Well, it's really not. I mean, you want to look at historically how things play out, and how different manipulations of data sets can really change your perspective, but it's not changing the trend. And predictive analytics and trending are two pieces when you're collecting data that allow for us to secure that. I mean, we have to do our homework, period. We have to do our own research. Okay, so again, don't adjust the axis to make your point. If you're getting to that point and you figure like, okay, well, it's not how I thought it would work out. Let me just move this. Let me just adjust the axis a hair. Go back to see why your hypothesis is not being supported by that period of time. So we get back to the pandemic. We can maybe put an asterisk in the presentation to say, March of 2020 through June of 2021, market was underperforming based on this. So historically, we can look at it 10 years from now and say, oh, that's why that fiscal year was so low. But don't omit it. You leave it in there and you own it. And you basically outline why things happen. Leave 3D to the movies. Again, it's a great function on PowerPoint when you can go into charts and you can really adjust it. You can adjust the axis and you're looking at it from a 3D view. It's very confusing because all you're really doing is you're adding more lines, and the shadowing just become more lines because they basically they morph the shape of the particular either chart, the particular bar, the spike. I mean, they shift the image. So just try to avoid the 3D. To Hannah's point earlier as well, maybe if you are presenting to DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg in the audience, yeah, definitely dress it up because their creative side is definitely going to outweigh the analytics side. Use color with intention. One of the things, I don't know if I have it up here. So color with intention, what does that mean? Like, I'll go back to this one so you guys can see. What do you see with this chart right here?
The red is the greatest.
Yep.
It clearly, compared to that other crazy one with the layers and everything, it clearly delineates what is what, as opposed to the other makes you stop and be like, what the heck's happening here with all the different colors?
It's
us with their colors.
is they own these colors.
Yeah.
When you think of YouTube, you think of red.
Oh, that was.
You think of Facebook, you think of blue.
I'm pretty smart, and I don't think I would have come up with that one. I can handle the presentation part.
So what color would Amazon be on this chart?
Yellow.
Yellow. Yep. What color would Home Depot be on this chart?
Orange.
Orange. So use colors that are recognized. You know, if I would have put the chart up and seriously, you guys would have picked it up like that. If Facebook on this chart was like, say like, I don't know, mauve, and YouTube was brown. And when we think of brown, what do we think of? UPS. See, we're conditioned for these things. So when you're presenting, stick with the color of the organization.
I wouldn't have thought of, I thought, like you said, I
Yeah.
thought dirt, like, so I'm not, the color thing didn't get me.
Well,
I
but
don't think I would have gotten there.
but and it's not a mystery. Red's a dominant color, right?
Yeah.
So YouTube has chosen to have red in their logo, and by dominating this particular category, it makes it pretty easy to kind of, whatever the category is, it makes it easy to make that argument, you know, that red is dominant. So we can't really tell what Twitter is, but you can see it's the little color of the bird. So that their market share is so small, it's not measurable, but you can see it when you have the template or the rubric, when you put it up there to show what your different categories are. Let's see. When using branded organizations, okay, we got our color, great resources to determine which chart will work with you. I have incorporated this into the Canvas app, but you can see like this, I don't know if it'll open right now, but it is definitely something that it's like you can download this PDF and it shows you if you're presenting what chart you should use. Pretty cool. I honestly, I probably use like 5 charts in this whole thing. It's not bad. It's not a bad download, not a bad point of reference for you. It's a little dated, I think 2015, so, but not bad. So that, I think, oh, and I want to cover this one last thing here. So the data visualization software, go figure, Microsoft has got the most popular. It's not, these are ancillary, they're not part of any of the suites, they're not part of any of the basic Windows package. They're very expensive. It's fed from Excel and Access, so it's a database feeder that it converts into presentations. You all worked with a similar platform. So who has done either in Excel or PowerPoint, who's inserted a chart into an Excel or PowerPoint doc? Right, most of us, right? So when you're doing that, have you seen where you're given an option with a little mini Excel doc to go in and select the data that you want from that, so it'll represent. So if I'm doing something in Excel, it's going to ask me what cells, what column and row I want to represent, and then it will populate a chart for me, and then I can choose the chart. So that is basically the training wheels of Microsoft Power when I'm creating a visualization. Tableau is gaining popularity, sold not too long ago. And same type of deal. It works through Microsoft as well. It's not a proprietary database at all. And ClickView is also probably, you'll see that at a lot of universities and college. You see it at some places that have budget constraints. You might even see it like in foundation offices and so forth, because it's easy to manage, it's inexpensive, it's compatible with Microsoft. So the battery's running low. I think, so that's, any questions on that, on tonight's data visualization? Want to go over beta one more time? I'm just kidding you. But when we go talk about the discussion board, these are the articles that I incorporated right here. So you got The Economist, Forbes, New York Times, Age of Big Data, Entrepreneur Magazine, Smart Data Collective. So when you're looking at your discussion post, you can reference these guys right here. So let's look at next week. Any questions on that so far?
So my discussion's not based on, okay, yeah, never mind, I'll figure this out.
No, what's the question? Like, this is, here's the, after watching the videos on decision-making, how effective are humans at making decisions? What inherent issues or problems may be involved in this process? Is decision-making a natural skill or does it need to be practiced and honed? So, go with your gut. Again, I ripped out the references. I don't really care for the citations in here. I just want you to have these conversations. Your discussions have been awesome. I really like reading them. You're very cordial and you're friendly to your classmates. So I really couldn't ask for anything more.
So you say no citations?
No citations. Oh, I'm sorry. Hannah wants at least 3. So we're going to do 3 citations.
I heard 6.
And
6.
how
I'm
many-
sorry. We
how
got
many
6.
replies, Eric, this week?
Let's do 2 replies this week. All right, so now we've got our written assignment, and this is the Tivana piece. So if you've looked at this already, I just changed some of the language to kind of clean it up for you because the online class uses this same shell that I have, and there's their final presentation has it more from the Starbucks perspective and a little bit less from Tivana's. So I really want to balance that because you're really a big piece of the purchase for Tivana's, from Tivana's perspective, was how, why they were founded. So, so gather evidence and drive insight from data, consider strong evidence from both sides because we're looking for the best solution for Tivana. And I know when we talk about time machines and hypothetical and going back in time to fix this or to look at it, and I really wiped that out. Remember, this is a hypothetical situation. Your recommended solutions from the week 3 assignment may or may not be Tivana's best solutions. So what that means is don't second guess yourself because you just did a whole assessment on Starbucks data collection process and things they missed, overlooked, and so forth. Now you're looking at it from Tivana's side. So they weren't always arm in arm in lockstep with each other. So keep that, it's a hypothetical situation that you're analyzing, knowing that Tivana's culture, Tivana's leadership was a little different than Starbucks model, okay? Make sure the solution reached is realistic. So just don't say, well, if I'm the max with Tivana, I'm just going to open these stores on my own. Well, we know that's not realistic because they didn't have the capital to do it. As we mentioned earlier, and Kate said, there was no ramifications really for Starbucks by losing $620 million. And we're still talking about them, and they're making money today. So support your stance with data collected from the tea industry. As I've talked to some of you, go to Google Scholar if you want to get different types of maybe articles that aren't necessarily in our EBSCO database. Maybe you can find other things. Look for videos, look for podcasts. So don't limit yourself to just a few, scholarly articles that you can find. Oh.
Oh, I think we got you back now, Eric.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, my power died.
I know. No, 3 o'clock.
Well, we just want to let you know that Maria took over and finished.
I was told I was the host once you left, so.
Awesome. All right, all we really have to do is talk about, do we have any questions on this week's paper?
Yes, I want to clarify. So we've written about Starbucks for 8,000 weeks, it feels like, right?
Or 5.
I know,
Continue.
it feels like every time I go get my coffee, like they know I'm cheating on them by finding stuff about them online. But this paper is, what would, I'm just saying out loud, so sorry to everybody in the house, but it's what would we have done if we were Tivana and we were in this situation and we were losing money?
Okay, so was Tivana losing money when they went into the,
No, they got bought.
Then no, it's no longer them.
No longer that. Okay. Gotcha.
so did you guys get that? We're taking it from the perspective of, we're not hemorrhaging money yet, or Tivana. But what, did that purchase or acquisition work for us based on the research that we've done? That's what we want to look at. And if it didn't, then we want to be the voice of Tivana. We've been the voice of Starbucks since week 1, or as Hannah said, for 17,000 weeks.
Feels like it.
But we want to be the voice of Tivana now and say, hey, we really think that we could have made this work if. So you're looking at it just from a different lens, same acquisition, different lens. Because obviously, at the end of the day, the Macs leave with $620 million in their pocket, but they don't have the company they started. Where Schultz and company are $620 million lighter in their wallet, but now they got another product that they can dominate the world with when it comes to the hot beverage industry. So 2 different perspectives in one transaction. You're just looking at the perspective from Tivana. Does that make sense, Hannah?
Yeah, I thought that's where we were going, but
Because that when we present at the end of the semester, we're going to look at, we're going to factor that into part of our presentation. So something that, you can apply Bader to this. You can apply Bader from the Tivana perspective. You can ask the question, culturally, why did this not work? Do we want to keep our culture, or do we want to pad our bottom line? So there are a lot of different ways you can look at it. And again, we're a science class, Master Science Organizational Leadership. So start playing with theories and come up with a theory you can defend, and we'll support you on it. Other questions?
Can I just confirm, our final class is on the 23rd, right?
It is the 23rd, correct?
Okay.
Because when you go the next class on the 30th, you will be in 540, which is strategic. No, I'm sorry, I have strategic. So you're in 540 is, I think, evaluations and compensation, like that semester or that mod. So yes, so the 30th is long, and on these presentations, everybody has to submit their final, where it was only the captains that submitted it for the practice, the rough draft. But on the when you submit your final, I need it by the 29th, because grades close on the 29th and the second mod starts on the 30th. So if you want to make any changes to it, clean it up, modify it, whatever, just get it to me by the 29th. But I'll keep pounding you on that as we get closer. More questions? Anything?
So that would be modifications after our presentation?
Yeah. Like if you found like a spelling error when you were presenting that you didn't pick up, then you blamed your teammate for it, you could then correct yours and submit it. Not that you'd ever do that, but. Yeah.
I don't mind it, Octopus, custom makes the company.
Custom ink, custom ink. Any other questions? All right, so I'm gonna post an amended week 5 discussion based on Enneagram. So it's gonna be a real open-ended. I don't think you're gonna lose any sleep thinking over this one. It's really kind of analyzing your particular style. So I'll post that. I'll talk with Sandy tomorrow. I'll have it up, and we'll give you we'll make it like a 5-point add-on to any particular assignment. So that's about it. Anything else? All right. So everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week. Let me know if you need anything, text me, email me. I'll be around. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye to your classmates now. Bye, everybody. All
Bye.
right, bye, guys.
Bye.